might not be. Well, I'll bump into that, get it fixed in a second here. First thing I need to do is see if I can change my Wacom settings real quick. Mapping, portion, there we go. And let's go ahead and I'm gonna really quickly look at our mannequins here and see if I can't find something. And let's also load up some reference if I have this running while I'm making stuff. I can add some local images here. Yeah, looks like I need to go fix that real quick. Okay, give me a second. Streaming. And then in here, we can look at some mannequins and see if we have any mannequin. C, 8-head female. No, we don't. Okay, so I'm gonna need to grab some reference. But first, let me fix Restream real quick. We're gonna close out of this. Wait. For some reason, Restream chat. Oh, there we go. Hey, it worked. Just needed to restart it. Okay, so first thing I need to find is some, that'd be child proportions. So we're gonna make a little Cupid person. I'm trying to figure out, okay, this'll work. Something like this. About 4 heads tall, about yay high, 1 to 3 years, that should work. That should get us, it's a little bit more extreme here. You know what, that might be a little bit funner. And maybe this one. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna go ahead and save image as here. And we're gonna go throw this right into Cupid reference here. And I'm gonna add it to my Quadro. Add local image. And it's gonna be this one here. So one thing I could do is I could have it over here and I can turn the transparency down just by tapping T, and I can have it just kind of overlaid right into my ZBrush here. Or I can have this off to the side. Hey, I do have a Discord, but I'm never on it. So it's probably overrun by bots by now, I'd imagine. I am from, I guess, for all intents and purposes, I'm from Georgetown, Texas. Fortunately or unfortunately. Let me see. So I'm going to go in here to texture, import, and we're just going to grab that streaming Cupid, sorry. That proportion guide. We're going to say texture, oops, select it. We're going to go ahead and scale it up so that we have our little proportional guide over here. And we'll go ahead and turn down this opacity just a bit. And that'll be a good enough start for our proportions here. So Z, and you know what? I'm trying to see, I think Andrew Loomis had a good one. That's the basic setup, what we would be going for. Oh, you know what? It's right there at the very beginning. I'm dumb. Oh, actually. Let me see. Save image as. Save it in here. And if you ever want to bring in another one, if you have your spotlight activated, you can go in here to texture import. And then when you bring in another one, it'll go ahead and stack it right in here. And if you ever want to get rid of one, you can just grab it, hit that little X key, and then I'll go ahead and get rid of it. While you're working, if you need to come back to the spotlight reference, or if like ZBrush crashes or something, you can go in here to texture, save spotlight. You can save it in there. I'm just gonna save it as spotlight. And then we can also have, you know, a view available to us. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that 4.5 heads or 4 heads tall is probably pretty decent. So we can go ahead and just get started here. So I'm going to start with a ZSphere here, go into edit mode, and hit X to go across X symmetry. And we'll start making our little baby creature here. So let's say we'll go from here. We'll start from the belly, and then we'll go ahead and add a little bit of that torso, and then legs here, and then move that down. Q, tap. Let's go ahead and balance it out a little bit more. Just hit W. So W to kind of move stuff around, and then Q to kind of, since we have a side view over here, you know what? We'll go ahead and, this will be fine. We'll go ahead and put some arms in here. And I'm going to give us a little bit of room to work. So I'm just going to kind of swing out from that elbow and then out from that wrist. And that'll give us, and I'm actually going to raise the arms up, yeah, probably raise the arms up a little bit more as we go. And we'll go ahead and put in the little neck and then the head here. And that'll get us close enough. And then we'll go ahead and snap to the side and make sure, you know, this is generally working for us. In fact, what we can also do is we can go over here to our movie timeline show. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to save a camera view for the front, just tap. And I'm going to save a camera view for the side, just tap again. So now when I do Shift Z and I'm over here moving stuff around, and then Shift Z to bring it back, I can use my arrow keys to kind of snap between my different camera views. Let's see here, let me get cut up. Cool. How often do I use HD geometry? Almost never. Let me see here, YouTube playlists, and just to have this ready in case I need to go back to something here. Usually if I'm getting that high fidelity, I'm doing it in the texture, but it's not breaking the silhouette. I'll just do my detail work in the texture. It's less destructive. So, okay, so I think we're good to go here. So next thing we need to do is I'm going to use, so now we've got the proportions, I'm going to go ahead and use rotates again, just to give us a little bit of working room in our file here. So we can get underneath the armpits, behind the knees and stuff like that. And I guess we can add some feet. So I'm going to hit Q, go back in here, and we'll draw some feet out. Just hit W and kind of pull this out. Now you can get as detailed as you want. You can put fingers on there if you want to. And in this case, you know, if we're going to be maybe a little bit more cartoony. Oh, you know what? Speaking of, let me see. One of the guys I work with, Jason Bourne. Sorry, Jason, if you didn't want me to open up your stuff, but I'm going to. He had kind of a cute, but he's a little bit of a chunker. I wonder if I can use some of this. I was going to keep it a little more simple than that, but that may be kind of fun. I'll have this off to the side here. We'll use that as a little bit of inspiration as well. So, but if you wanted to do hands here, so again, if I rotate this arm down, you can see, okay, this actually encompasses the hand. So if you want to back this up to that wrist here and kind of pull this up, little elbow length here, so rotate here, this will back a little bit. So now this will behave as kind of a wrist here. So we'll go into Q, and we'll go ahead and start making a hand here. So we're going to put this one out here, and you know what, let's give it just a little bit of a palm, and then we'll go through here, and you can start putting in fingers. 3, 4, and then if you want to snap to the original size, you can hold down Shift and it'll snap. Of course, if your fingers are going to taper, you can go ahead and scale it down, and then as you add in knuckles here, you can go ahead and it'll taper as you go down. And this might be overkill. It might even be easier just to kind of add a hand on later. So because these get to be a little bit much to handle, I'll go ahead and just do that. So we'll stop it right here. And again, I think that's about right. So I think we're good. So if I hit A now, you're going to see it's going to turn into kind of a dynamesh here. So we're going to go into our adapt to skin properties, because we're in a ZSphere, and here's our preview. So hitting A toggles you in and out of that preview. We're going to drop that dynamesh resolution down, density down, and now we just have a very simple mesh. Of course, you don't have to turn the density down. You can keep it up if you want to, but I think that'll give us a good start. Yeah, let's say density of 2 is fine. Now if I go down here to say make adaptive skin, that's going to put out a skin ZSphere. This ZSphere is just the working ZSphere. You can just, again, go back into ZSphere mode as much as you want. Then you can go over here to your skin ZSphere and start sculpting. Now, because we had those divisions on, we do have actual subdivisions in here. It's just like hitting Control D. And even at this point, I might be even tempted, even though I said, you know, turn Dynamesh off. This is easy enough to kind of go through here and just start kind of pulling stuff around. And your camera view should still be working just fine. Part of the problem, though, is that when you start with a ZSphere, you tend to get kind of capped out here with your draw size. It's not a huge deal, but if I go in here to Subtool, Append, ZBrush generally likes to work kind of in this space here, and we're not tremendously outside of that space, so it's not a huge deal. But if you wanted to, you can actually go in here to select your object here just really quickly, Deformation, Unify, and then I'll throw it right into that space, and then you can just kind of start from there. Again, not a huge deal in this case. And in fact, you know, with your draw size here, if you were having problems with your draw size, as far as like it kind of capping out a little bit early, preferences, draw, change your dynamic brush scale upward or down if you need to make it smaller. That's a way around that. Now the problem with doing that is I've probably lost my camera views. So now he's small. So all I got to do is go through here my camera, pull those off, and we'll go ahead and reset this here. It's not even really imperative that we, you know, it's always kind of a good idea to keep your proportions around just in case. We'll go ahead and tap this side here and tap this side here. And then now that we have those, we can go ahead and turn off movie timeline show. So now we can, oops, go between those as needed. So here we can go ahead, while we have just a very low res geometry, you can go ahead and start pulling this around. Let's go ahead and snap this here. So we get that little bean body shape in there. We'll go ahead and pull these legs back just a bit, and we'll start, you know, fleshing out our little Cupid here. And in fact, we can even start with a head shape. If we wanted to borrow a head shape, we could do that as well. Maybe we will. I'll go through here. We don't have any hair yet, but you know, you kind of start going in here, and you're basically just kind of getting these soft kind of forms and volumes dialed in. You know, the sweep of the outside of the thigh, and then the calf, and then the inside here. And you're also going to notice higher on the outside, lower on the inside of that calf here. And you're always going to kind of want to work on the round. You can see it's really clunky and lumpy right now, but you know, that's how things start. And then you refine as you go. But at least we have a start here. Okay, I'm going to move this over. Is there a place I can move this? Sorry, it's a little bit over to the side here. Face anatomy of kids and mature man is different. Yes, and actually, good point. We're going to be zoomed in on the head, right? So let's look that up. Let's do child face proportions. Perfect. Ta-da. There's a baby, toddler. I think that'll work. Which one? Which one? I kind of like this one. Yeah, okay, so let's go ahead and save. We want to save the link as. We want to save. Why does it take so long? Sometimes Google Chrome kind of hiccups on a save file. There we go. Save image as. Baby head proportions. Boom. There we go. So we'll pull that in when we start dialing in the face. Yes, hey Mike, is there a way to make mats from render preview occlusion? Oh, mask from render preview occlusion. If yes, show us in the session, please. Yeah, you can do that right down here underneath masking. Mask by AO, mask ambient occlusion, and there you go. So you can, now it's not going to be like the real-time render settings, but you can certainly go in here and change your occlusion intensity, scan distance, and aperture to dial in where you want your AO to go when it gets masked. So an easier way to see that, if I go in here to flat color, and we say mask by ambient occlusion, you can see it masks in the AO areas. John Yu, hey. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I just posted whatever link they gave me for my Twitter there. Do you ever combine ZSketch and ZSpheres? Yes. Good point. I'm doing good, Alex. Thanks for asking. So let's talk about that for just a minute here. So if you ever did want to, for example, you got ZSpheres here. And another really cool thing you can do with ZSpheres, you can go in here to ZSketch. You can go in here to Edit Sketch. And even with X symmetry turned on, you can go through here and you can start adding Z-sketches. So this is where you can go nuts with this kind of stuff, right? You can go through here, you can add muscle striations if you want, or you can just do fantastical creature stuff. Or if you're doing plant life, if you had other objects in your scene, let's just go ahead and do that real quick. Let's go ahead and append a cube. Gotta put this over here. So let's say this is a tree growing out of a thing. Go through here and it'll actually stick on any other surface you have. So if you needed to put roots on a terrain or something like this, is a really easy way to do that. Those kind of stick right to that surface here. Now I do have X symmetry turned on, so it's doing it on the other side as well, but you get the idea. Now, however, if you go in here and you hit A, that's going to give you a unified skin, not an adaptive skin, because Z-sketching does a unified skin. So here, if you want to crank up your resolution, you can tap A and then turn A back on, and you can see it gets a little bit higher, a little more resolution. There is a way where you can go through here under where we had Z-sketching, right? Oops. Boy, I haven't used these in a while. Z-sketch. Here we have Z-sketch and then adaptive skin and then unified skin. So while we're in edit sketch mode, it's going to give us a unified skin. If I go out of A and then, or turn off edit sketch and then hit A, it's going to give us an adaptive skin. If I turn on edit sketch and then turn on show sketch, edit sketch off, and then hit A, it's going to give us an adaptive skin. While if I turn up the density, you're going to see it's going to start projecting as much as it can to the unified skin. Now it's not going to get everything. So in order to get everything, what I usually tend to do is let's go ahead and turn on edit sketch. So with edit sketch turned on, I know it sounds like it's a lot, but it's pretty simple. Edit sketch is on, I'm going to hit A, that gives me my unified skin, no problem. Unified skin, make unified skin. Go ahead and turn edit sketch off, hit A again, gives me adaptive skin, make adaptive skin. Now I can combine both of these. Here's my adaptive skin Z-sphere. We can go in here to subtool, append our unified skin. So now I have my unified skin and my adaptive skin, and I can work on them separately if I want to, or if I want to go ahead and combine them all together, I'll just go ahead and merge down, which is underneath your subtool. Merge down here, and then if you want to, you can like dynamesh this all together. So you just say blur down, resolution, dynamesh. There you go. So that's how you would use Z-sketching, and I'm going to go ahead and clear some of this stuff out of here. Delete all. There we go. So yeah, good question. Going good. Cool. Thanks for existing. I'm happy to exist. I mean, I might know how to do it. So there are some things that I'll learn for like, my YouTube videos or something like that. And if I never use them that much, boy, I can forget stuff fast, so certainly not infallible. But, if I have an inkling of where it is, I can at least point you to the name in a video possibly of where you might be able to accomplish it, or like Ask ZBrush might have, a good answer here. Okay. And okay, so we got a head. Now, if we wanted to steal a head, one thing we do, we can go in here to tool, load tools from project, and you can go to ZBrush 2021 Z projects. Hold on, give me a second. Yoink. And in here, there's the like the demo anime head we can use, and that's a Z project. So why I use load tool from project is I don't want to load it from a project because it's going to blow away all the work I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and say demo anime head, and then we just load this in. Now I can just append this head, or I can make it an insert mesh brush. I can hit B, create insert mesh, new, go back to my working file here. We just go, oops, forgot we had geometry, delete lower, And then we can just drag that head right on. And then we can just replace the head that I have. So now, you know, while it's masked, when I did an insert mesh brush, we can say split mask points, alt tap our original file here. And because it was kind enough to give us polygroups for every ZSphere we made, I can literally just take this head here, Control Shift, drag, geometry modified topology, delete hidden. And then we've got a head kind of sitting there ready for us to use. So we can go through here. And again, we're going to snap this, make sure our head is the right size. We'll go ahead and alt tap that, hit W, maybe shrink this down, move it down just a bit here, and then we'll just seems about right. Now, if we wanted to, we could ZRemesh this head and like stitch it to the body. I think what we'll probably do is go ahead and just Dynamesh this body together. It's low enough to where I think we could just not have to worry about that too much. And this geometry isn't great. You know, the midline is a little bit busted. So we'll go ahead and just do that. That'll make our lives easier. In fact, if I just Dynamesh this result now, so we just go ahead and just hit Dynamesh, it's gonna be a little bit low. I'm gonna turn that resolution up just a tiny bit here. We'll pull this neck in and we'll fatten. We'll alt tap this one and we'll fatten this neck out. And now again, we're just going to go through here. I also like to do a quick geometry modified topology mirror and weld just to make sure it's mirrored down that center line. And then we'll just go ahead and merge these down. Now this one doesn't have Dynamesh on. As I merge these things down, and again, that merges subtool merge. I have a hotkey for it, so that's why I always forget where it is. There it is, merge down. We'll go through here, and you know what? Again, we'll just crank up the resolution just a bit, hit Dynamesh, and now both of these things are together. Now, if we wanted to ZRemesh this just to get nice, clean geometry back while we're sculpting, we can certainly do that. I don't foresee us making a huge amount of changes on this, so I might do that early. His shoulder's a little bit wonky here. Let's go ahead and make it a little more of a natural pose here. We'll put a little bit of a bend for an elbow in here, and then that wrist. And then if you want to steal a hand, BI brush insert, and we'll go here to body parts here, hit M, and you just grab one of these hands. And these are going to be very elegant adult hands. So we're going to go ahead and say split mask points, and we'll modify these to our little baby hands in just a second here. Let's go into local symmetry. So if I have local symmetry on, that's LSIM. That'll scale across that local axis here. And this will give us a decent start. Now, if I want to stubby up these fingers and this hand, I'm going to go ahead and just scale down that axis here. I'll kind of fatten those hands up a little bit. And if we have maybe a little bit too much geometry, I can just go ZRemesh half, depth of size down to 0. And we'll just kind of simplify those a bit. That's under geometry, ZRemesher, by the way. And we can even go in here to inflate. And the reason why, just using the inflate brush, and the reason why I'm using like hand geometry is if I go through here and Dynamesh this result now, there's a good chance these fingers will start sticking together. In this case, it didn't, which is cool. But also, if I wanted to go through here and pose these, having decent geometry might be a little bit easier to kind of go through. And let's go ahead and hold down Control. We'll go in here to mask lasso, and we'll say here. And you know what, let's go ahead and bend all these fingers here. And I'm using this bend from camera angle. And I'm going to turn down the intensity of my smooth brush here. I have smooth stronger turned on by default. So I have to usually go in and tone down my smooth on very low resolution objects. And I'm just going to stuff that right in there. Now I can continue just sculpting on this because this geometry is fine. It's just mostly quads, which is nice. So I can just go through here. I'm going to do a quick cap, close, convex hole here. And then we can even do a crease PG as under your geometry crease menu here. And then now as I subdivide, it'll go ahead and keep that wrist nice and crispy for me. And then we can just go through here and sculpt this. This thumb looks a little big to me. We still have LSIM turned on. And we have subdivision, so we can go through here and make low res envelope changes on the fly. Kind of go through here and adjust these proportions as needed. Give them little stubby sausage fingers. Another thing too, while we're moving, we can go in here to auto masking, turn on topological, change that range down to like maybe 1.2, and then you can move these fingers individually apart from each other. But again, I kind of want to give myself a little bit of room to work in here, so I'm going to kind of move these things around. Now, I don't know. I think the closest thing I've ever sculpted to a kid would be like Mr. Mixelplix on DC Universe Online. I don't remember ever sculpting like a whole bunch of children. Just it never really comes up in my line of work that often. So this will be interesting here. I won't be as well versed, but hopefully we can make it work here. So here's my gross old gnarly fingers. Oh boy, I'm behind. Best way to get a blocking out of a hard surface Dynamesh to a single-sided cleaner mesh, maybe slicing or masking Edgeloop. Yeah, there's a bunch of different techniques for that. There's kind of brute force methodology, which is take your Dynamesh, go through and clip and H-polish and trim dynamic, and then just use ZRemesher. You can do slice and ZRemesher to keep your grooves. You can go through and rebuild it. You can do a bunch of ZBrush modeling and then just rebuild it using ZSpheres. It kind of depends on what you want to what's easiest and what's fastest. ZSphere character construction or primitive piece by piece, Shane Olsen style construction. Depends on what you're creating. Yeah, it kind of depends. And on something like this, it would have been easy enough just to go in here and do, yeah, like a base body that was just, you know, a sphere and a sphere. But in this case, and usually I would start with that, especially for like a hyper stylized character. Let's go ahead and turn my Z intensity back up. But for this one, it seemed it's simple enough just to kind of go through here. I mean, I would probably arrive at this solution putting in primitives anyways, so that seemed to work. I was going to use the inflate brush just to kind of get myself some volume on the inside of the calf here, where I kind of lost it a little bit. There we go. And then here, we'll go ahead and shrink this in. And again, go back to my inflate brush. We'll just kind of plump out these arms just a bit. And this elbow. That'll work. Huge fan for Bulgaria. Do you have a first sculpt in details on characters and then pose them, or the other way around? Thanks for the kind words. Yeah, usually I do sculpt the details and pose them later. It just saves a little bit of time. Same thing for this one. I could go ahead and put it in a pose and then sculpt it. It wouldn't be that big of a deal in this case. But yeah, generally speaking, just to save me time, usually sculpt first, pose second, and then clean up that sculpt. Not that one. That ambient occlusion takes a long time to calculate. I'm asking about the new occlusion render preview. I mean, so you can go in here to, here's render preview AO. It's not real impressive on this particular model here, but so what you could do, since, I mean, this isn't applied to your mesh. So if I go in here and hit BPR and we have the render preview AO turned on, we go in here to render, it's screen spaced. So I don't know how, if a screen spaced AO would be all that useful on a 3D model, unless it was like a relief sculpture or something like that. But if you go in here to render pass, you're going to see this is actually baked underneath the shadow pass now. So your preview AO is in the shadow pass. In fact, if you want to, well, here, I'll show you this too. YouTube playlists here. So on my ArtStation page, ZBrush 2021.5 here is going to be the what's new. It starts at video 68 is the 2021.5 stuff. Preview AO is right near the top there. So I can go ahead and, you know what? If you want to see the other versions of ZBrush, it's right there. And then on my YouTube channel as well, ZBrush 2021, what's new? It's right here. There's a new 3D look dev, which is kind of fun. We might play with that. But you can check that out. And that might be, that'll give you more information on like how to adjust your shadow settings to also kind of play around with that render preview AO, but as far as like using this as a mask, your preview AO, again, it's screen spaced. So even if you were to render this out, it would be like, okay, I've got a shadow map. You could save a texture, paint it onto your object, and if you have UVs, you can go in here and you can do like Polypaint mask by intensity. You could do that. That seems like kind of a waste of time. Yeah, I would say your best bet, if you want a mask with an AO, then I would just do mask by AO, as opposed to trying to figure out how to paint your screen spaced AO onto your object. And then, I mean, if that's really, really useful, that's a workaround you could use, but I'm struggling to think why that would be, you know, worth your time. But hey, you know what? If it helps, it works, it works. Cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can use the ZSketch and the adaptive skin and the unified skin at the same time, and adaptive skin will project to the unified skin within a certain range. But it's usually easier just to take them both. Cool. Zimbabwe. Venezuela. So many international people here early in the morning, Central Time. I love it. Cool. Absolutely. If you're working against measurements from other programs, won't Unify lose that? Yes. So in fact, when you bring stuff in, ooh, do I have that? In fact, so let's go in here. Let's go into here, out of edit mode, hit Control N. So from Marvelous Designer, if I go in here to import on my desktop, I was just teaching my CGMA class. We use this as an example. So here's my Marvelous Designer avatar, and we bring this in. Here we go. It automatically brings it in kind of unified, because at the very bottom here under export, it's going to multiply it by 966. However, under geometry, and this makes it so that ZBrush works nicely. You know, your draw size works nice and everything's fine. But underneath geometry size, you're going to see it keeps it around 2. And if we go in here where we unified our object here, you know, this guy, we have our geometry size around 2. Perfect. And however, when I go to export this, it's a scale of 1. So if I have this little cherub guy and we go in here and we append our Marvelous Designer guy, you're gonna be like, okay, great, where did he go? And then you hit F. It's gonna be, oh, there's my Marvelous Designer guy. Okay, now where's my other guy? He's microscopic, because these are 2 very different working scales. So in this case, if I did take my Marvelous Designer guy in this scene with this guy and we did unify and then hit F to frame, he's the size of our cherub here. But then if I export this back out, you know, I don't have that 966 multiplier anymore. So he's going to be way off scale. He's going to be microscopic compared to my original Marvelous Designer file. So yes, when you work from another file, from another program, then yeah, don't unify it or scale it, just because in any other program, if you import it and then you scale it, then yeah, it's going to be off of scale because you changed the scale. But since we weren't working from any kind of working units or anything like this, we're just working in ZBrush and concepting, I felt free to hit unify. But good point. And if I missed some of these, I'm sorry. I'm getting already behind. What's the most reliable way to get a decent unwrap of a full body in ZBrush? In ZBrush, probably putting in polygroups and then using UV master. Can you patch a feature request onto the ZBrush code wizards? Mask lasso, mask rectangle here, so the backface mask is on or off, same way it already does for the mask pin. I mean, that's been something people have been talking about for years, so and I'm certain they know it. But essentially what you can do is you can just, you know, get rid of visibility and then just mask through however you want and then turn visibility back on. In the meantime, I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. I have a hard time posing a fully clothed armored character. Yeah, that's tough. And in fact, if you want to rig a character that's fully clothed and armored, that takes a team of people to do that. I mean, not really. I mean, if you want to do an okay job, you can do auto riggers and go through and paint weights and stuff. But anytime you go to pose a character, it's not there's no free lunch when it comes to rigging and weight painting and leaf joints and helper blend shapes and muscle simulations. Like, it's no different than moving a complex character in ZBrush, other than you don't have to have a PhD in rigging to get that to happen, but you are going to have to do some cleanup. It's not easy. If it was easy, then yeah, you could. I mean, maybe it will be. There's AI and machine learning and auto rigging tools. You know, maybe sometime soon there will be a solution that'll look at your object and look at all the clothing pieces and automatically put in all the weighting correctly, and then automatically build in muscle simulation and blend shape corrections and skin sliding. And you'll just get it for free, and you can just go through and do an awesome character. It's probably gonna be a while before that happens, but what am I using? I think I'm using a 2080 Ti with my AMD Ryzen 3970X. Of course, ZBrush is very CPU intensive program, so my GPU probably isn't doing too much right now. Okay, advice on likeness sculpting. Have your reference and match it. Likeness sculpting is actually really easy. You use use a bunch of different reference images, and you slavishly stick to all your reference and then just match it. Of course, it does help to have a little bit of anatomical knowledge, so you can like interpret in the round a little bit easier. But at the end of the day, if you're just taking something and matching it, you look at it and then you make yours look like that. It's not any more involved. Do you prefer to use ZBrush UV and wrapping? Sure, if I need something quick. Yeah, I'm doing good. Do I work in Houdini too? Yeah, occasionally. Again, here on my ArtStation page, there's Houdini Auto Game Res and Auto Game Dev Toolset. You can check those out. The Houdini Auto Game Res is a little newer. The Auto Game Dev Toolset's a little bit older, but it's got a little bit of different stuff in there. Again, sorry if I missed something in here. I'm just kind of moving quick. I am doing well, thank you. Where babies come from, you know, I'm too afraid to ask. I wasn't keeping up with updates that must have been changed in regards to retopology, or still need to append ZSphere, etc. Yeah, so in ZBrush 2020, ZBrush 2021, what's new? If you go in here and say edge, you can now do edge extrusion, and also you can use cloth simulation. Do I have that in here? Yeah, so you can use cloth simulation. I mean, you could always do projectile, but now you can use cloth simulation to go ahead and make these verts stick to the surface of your mesh for arbitrary meshes, as well as you can use entire bodies. So here's me posing this entire body and then using cloth simulation to project those verts to another body. As well as you can go through here and you can use edge extrusion and snap the surface, and there's a new move point ZModeler brush, so as you move the points within a certain radius of another point, it'll snap a weld to that point. So edges will weld now, points will weld now, so you can very quickly kind of go through here and use ZModeler and auto welding to kind of go through here and make your face. And speaking of, you can also take that face and then just kind of wrap it to another face, again using the new what's it called, dynamic collision volume or collision detection system. So that's how I made this head here. So again, ZBrush 2021, what's new? You can check that out. And it's also on my YouTube channel, just that ArtStation's a little bit easier to navigate, I think. Looks a little bit easier to navigate. My YouTube playlist channel, it's not quite as pretty. Cool. Yes, can you suggest me a retopology guideline book? As far as like for animation, what do we use? A good guide is oh, I don't remember his name. And it's funny because we just usually end up just using a base mesh. We do it once. We don't do like retopology from scratch every time, because usually, unless you're doing this hyper stylized game, topology is not going to change that much per character. What is his name? Let me see. got to be in here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just drawing a complete blank. Topology for animation. Google that. I'm sure there's like a million topics or a million lines on that subject. But the rule sets aren't rocket science. Video on sculpted hair. I think you mentioned in one of your videos. Curve brush hair, I think, but I couldn't find it. Yeah, let me see here. YouTube hair. I want to say usually here's kind of sculpting hair cleanup. What I usually try to do is use IMM brushes and stuff. Sculpting hair is a pain for me anyways, but give those videos a shot. Watching for Dublin, cool. I need to get back to Ireland. We got to visit once many years ago. Had a good time. Cool. With all new features, if you're creating game products or furniture, do you start with ZModeler right away, or do you concept sculpt first and ZRemesh? It kind of depends. If it's a really complex object, I might go through and like just Dynamesh and clip and move stuff around and make it happen, and then go through and like rebuild with ZModeler or whatever. But if it's simple, like a chair, then I'll just start with ZModeler. So cool. All right. So if the name comes to my brain, I'll shout it out here. But I really, it's like a weird name. I don't know. Okay, so we got our child here. So let's go ahead, and I think we got our basic proportions here. I don't think I'm going to vary from those very much. So we're going to go through here, and we're going to go in here to texture, import, and we're just going to grab from our reference here. We're going to go ahead and grab that head. So texture, head, select, add it. Let's go ahead and scale this down just a bit here, and we'll hit Z, and I'm going to set up a couple new, you know what, I'm going to keep perspective off while we're kind of doing this here. So we'll go ahead and make our baby head. So let's go in here to movie timeline, show, and then we'll go and drag these off. We don't need them anymore. I'm going to snap that one, and then this one, you know, let's dial in these features first. So we're going to go through here. We're going to kind of use our move brush. Here, we're going to get rid of that point in that chin a little bit, maybe move these ears to match, and then I think that's pretty close. We're going to get rid of that pointy nose. And then from this view, as you start sculpting, you'll see it'll kind of imprint that sculpt just a bit. In this case, we're not going to use that as anything worthwhile, but just wanted to point that out. And then we'll go ahead and kind of put in this button nose. Now, if you wanted to, of course, you could go through here if it's easier just to kind of, you know, start dialing things in with ZSpheres first. You can go through here and put in this one. We'll go out of X symmetry, hold down Control, drag out a copy. And then, of course, I like to do a quick deformation mirror, geometry modify topology, mirror and weld, and go through here. And I know that's like, you know, using my custom menu and like, okay, deformation, mirror across the X, and then geometry, modify topology, mirror and weld somewhere in here, but it's a royal pain to do that from those menus. So I apologize to everybody who's brand new to ZBrush. That was really fast, and everybody hates me on YouTube for that. That's okay. I can take your criticism on YouTube comments. So you can do that as well. And then at the end of the day, you just control drag and everything's going to be dynameshed together. Of course, you know, we can also dynamesh at a slightly higher resolution, and we can also go ahead and pop this head off. Go in here to select lasso and say split hidden, geometry, modify topology, no, subtool, split hidden. Then we're going to crank this resolution up. So while we're working on the head, we can work on the head at a slightly higher resolution, and then the body at the original resolution. And then we can just merge those things back later on and stitch them together. So that way, you know, you can have a little bit more fun with the head. Hold down Shift, Z intensity down, and then go ahead and put this back. So let's go ahead and plump those cheeks out, maybe our inflate brush a little bit here, and then we can even go in here with our standard brush, or people hate when I do that. Let's go BPA to our paintbrush, and then we can just use this to paint on this head here. So that's where my features are going to end up going. Of course, we can go through here. Let's go ahead and turn off RGB for our clay brush. We'll go ahead and kind of put in our sockets here, and then I'm going to go in here and just grab a sphere. So for you guys, it would be BI brush insert primitives. Just grab a sphere out of there. I have a custom little insert mesh brush that I like to use. And this doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. I don't need to make a hyper realistic human child. And then subtool split mask points to get those into their own subtool there. So now we have our little nose and our little orbital ridge and our little little baby zygomatic arch off to the side here, and the cheekbones, all that stuff. So just make sure. Oh, another thing too is if I hold down Shift to smooth, you see it also smooths out my paint. Just hold down Shift and turn off RGB, and then it will just smooth out your ZRemesh. So let's go ahead and it's back here, and we'll go ahead and say go down Mesh Center, center these just a bit, and I'll tap here. Now you're also going to be noticing, like if I alt tap on the body, the head still stays very light. So do the eyes. That's because we have Polypaint turned on. So I can go ahead and turn that off. So now when you tap on the body and tap on the eyes, we know it's selected. The head still has Polypaint on it, so that's okay. I'm going to go through here with my Damien standard brush. We're just going to, where the crease of the mouth is, let's go ahead and push that in just a little bit here. And we don't really have a tremendous amount of resolution here. So we might, in fact, just go through here and put in that mouth cylinder, that tooth cylinder here, and that chin. And this, now that we got the features kind of started, we can go ahead and maybe do that side view. Keep us honest here. So we'll go ahead and set that. And now that we have both those set, I can go ahead and get rid of movie timeline show. Here, let's do this. W here. Trying to get it to rotate just around that center point. I guess I don't need to, but move that over. Yeah, it looks like on that second one I dropped it. Let's go ahead and move that up just a bit. There we go. So again, we'll go back in here to show really quickly and just plop that second one off and then store a new one. Okay, so this will be about right. The cranium here, and then how far out these features need to go. Use the move brush or move Accu. If you've watched this channel before, you know all about move Accu. It's underneath your curve here. Just turn on Accu curve with your move brush. And this ear is a bit off, so we're going to go in here, hold down Control, go into Mask Pin. We're going to mask this ear out, hit Control, tap in your document. We're just going to scooch this back and put it on a slight angle. Match that ear here. Control drag again. And then again, you always want to be working in the round, so if you ever do anything bizarre like this, you can always go through and correct it. Let's go ahead and hit inflate. We'll inflate that ear up, kind of fatten it up just a bit. There we go. Alrighty, so that'll be our basic head shape here. And again, if you want to use these as guides as well, you can go through here just with your Damien standard, kind of go through here, where these details are going to end up, and then you can go through here. Actually, it would be nice if I had, oh, I got it right here. Just having that reference available to you, so you can go through here with your standard brush. I'm going to crank up my lazy radius underneath stroke. Lazy radius, just crank that up a little bit and then tap L so you can toggle it off. And then just use L to toggle it off and on, so we can kind of sculpt this in, kind of get that that little helix shape here. And again, we'll go in here with our Damien standard, and let's use that inflate. And we're working very, very low. Again, we're just kind of getting our volumes in there, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time dialing that in, but we're just kind of looking for these nice smooth forms here. And then for the eyelids, let's make our lives maybe a little bit easier. I'm going to alt tap the eyeballs. We're going to say duplicate these off twice, And then for this top eyelid, hold down Control Shift, and we're just going to run a trim curve. So if we go in here to solo mode, polyframe on, we're going to trim the bottom of those eyeballs out. So you can kind of see that. And then for the second duplicate, we're going to do the exact same thing for the upper eyelids. We'll go ahead and do that. So now, you know, it should have put, I think that's a separate polygroup, is it? Yeah. It doesn't look like it, but that's a separate polygroup here. So I can now go through here, hover over a face, well, BZM, ZModeler brush, hover over a face, QMesh polygroup all, hold down Shift, and we just pull along that surface normal. Same thing for the upper eyelids here. Just kind of pull along that surface normal. So now we kind of have some eyelid geometry that we can use. It's a little bit, maybe a little bit easier than sculpting the geometry. I mean, whatever's easier for you. But now we can go through here and we can kind of put this back here. And just kind of, again, just kind of match what's going on in here. Now we may need to bring, oh, another thing too is, generally speaking, you want your lower eyelid, you know, you want your upper eyelid steps back to your eyeball steps back to your lower eyelid here. So we'll keep that in mind. Kind of flesh that out. And again, we'll probably have to make some concessions around those cheeks. So we'll alt tap the face here, and we'll go ahead and just do like an inflate around here, because this is going to be something like that. And we'll go back in here to our paintbrush. Creepy as hell. That's all right. God, if it was Halloween, that would be perfect. I could do a creepy little kid. Okay, so again, we want this upper eyelid out in front, this brow ridge. Not that you want a giant brow ridge for your child. Let's go ahead and rotate these eyeballs in just a bit too. So we kind of pull these eyeballs back, and now we can pull these lower lids back. There we go. So something like this. And let's go ahead and up the resolution on our head here. So we're going to alt tap the head. We're going to crank that Dynamesh resolution up, and that'll give us a little more wiggle room for kind of getting these nostrils kind of in here, and then our Damien standard brush here. So we got our little face. We have a little mouth, and you know, looking at our reference here, you know, the inside corner of the eye. You know, the mouth, you know, kind of the mouth will go for an adult male or adult female. The pupil down will kind of match up with the corner of your mouth, give or take. You know, proportions are a little bit changed, but again, feel free to do with that what you will. We can hold down Alt with our Damien standard brush and kind of pull out as well. That'll kind of give us our upper lip and our lower lip, and then we can go through here with our inflate brush and use our move brush here. And this is also from the side view. Got to remember there's draft to the face, so you don't want to just sculpt. So there's a corner of my mouth here. We want to make sure that the corner of the mouth wraps around that toothy cylinder here. So we'll go ahead and make sure that'll work. It also looks like we got some pretty good jowls going on this side here too. So we'll go ahead and use our clay brush or our inflate brush to kind of fill this in too. Maybe not that much. And these are starting to get a little bit distracting. So we'll go ahead and just dial in a little bit where that eyebrow is going to go, and then we can go ahead and just turn off that poly paint, and then that's the kind of the face we got going here. And we'll go in here with our clay brush very lightly, and you know, just keep dialing in these forms. And let me see if I can't, if I've got a kind of a cherubic face here. This is where getting like 3/4 reference of a kid would be really helpful. You can only get so much information, or scan data. I don't know if they're like 1024 or anything has scan data. I don't think I do. Locally anyways. So we can go through here, and we're gonna start just kind of dialing in our chin a little bit. I'm gonna drop that intensity in our clay brush. We're working with very delicate features here. Now, if I control drag, if you start losing resolution that you don't want to lose, then you can up your resolution. In this case, I think we're okay. So we'll go ahead and just, again, here and working around. And then we've got our upper and lower eyelids. I think we're okay. Here, let's go ahead and fatten up these cheeks. Another one you can use like clay buildup. You may need to kind of tone that down, and underneath stroke modifiers, go in here, we'll take that roll distance up. So you can kind of, it's very lightly, you know, build up your volumes this way. Since he's so, everything is like such a soft shape, I think clay brush is probably going to be good enough here. And then as we integrate the lids and stuff to the face, I just want to make sure that everything's kind of dialed in enough. We got the cheeks here, and I'm going to kind of build this up just a tiny bit too. We got the corners of the mouth here. We can already dial in kind of a little bit of a smile here. Then the nodes on the corners of the mouth here can kind of be a little bit plump too. And again, you know, as far as like the final cleanup, if you're seeing like, I got some triangles that aren't resolving very nicely, that's okay. We're going to ZRemesh this later on anyway, and then we'll get a very, very clean mesh, so I'm not too worried about it. But I think that'll work. And now as far as the ears go, and we'll go through here. And now you can actually, if you have scan data of an ear, I don't think ears are going to change that much. As far as proportionally they might, but the anatomy of the ear I don't think is going to change that much between a toddler and an adult. I don't have kids though, and it's been a while since I've been a kid, so I don't really remember. You guys who have kids can probably yay or nay that in the comments if they have severely different ear anatomy. Let's go ahead and pull this out as well. So you got this, and then we got this is going to kind of sweep over and in, and then this is going to kind of punch in, and then this helix is going to swing around here, and then it's going to maybe have a little bump. Ears are pretty unique too, so depending on whose ear you're making, good reference can help with that too. Just like we were talking earlier about sculpting a likeness, you know, match their ear. What kind of ears do they have? Do they have an attached lobe or a detached lobe? Do they have skin that folds over on the top? Are their ears kind of pointy? How far out from the head do they stick? All that stuff. Looks like this one's slightly off center. Oops, forgot I had that already shown. Go ahead and just pull that one off. There we go. So I think this one's a little more centered. And again, I don't have to match it slavishly. It's just a good, you know, rule of thumb for what we're dialing in here. And I think we're ready to integrate these eyelids, maybe. Alt tap this bottom one here. Yeah, it's about the right shape. Oh, and then the hair as well. Okay, so speaking of hair, we did talk about that a little bit, so let's do Shift Z. It's going to kind of round out this head just a little bit. Big flat forehead here. There you go, something that up. Turn perspective on. I'm going to kind of back this out just a little bit here. The corner of his head a little bit pointy. Okay. Oh boy, I'm really behind now. Cool, and again, if I miss some, sorry about that. Matching use V's with the texture we imported, like a coat can with a cylinder. Sometimes UVs look a bit weird and make it tough. Some tips are really appreciated. So like if you have a texture and you need to match your UVs to it like a coat can, you would just do it as cylindrical projection, or not even that. You could just literally, for easy would be using Hedis. Just take your cylinder, slice it up where you want the seam, flatten it, go through and just hit R, and it'll go rectangular. And you can do it in any UV program, but it'll make it rectangular, and then you just move it into place on your coat texture. Now that kind of texture would be super easy. If we're talking about like moving your UVs to match something complex, that'd just be a lot of tweaking and relaxing. You talk about your menus and your shortcuts. Yeah, so basically, if it's something I use all the time, like going from clay brush to standard brush to inflate brush to Damien standard, you know, those are going to be hotkeys. And you can just hold down Control Alt, and you can assign a hotkey to a brush. You can assign a hotkey to a menu. So for instance, my custom menu is assigned to Alt A here, my Pav custom menu. For things I don't use, I use often, but not like hotkey worthy, I'll have it in my interface. So you get, you know, these things I don't actually go to that much when I'm usually demoing anything. But anything you want to throw in your your interface for easy access, and or a hotkey assigned to a custom menu for easy access. And then beyond that, you can go into comma key, and if there's some brushes or some alphas or some textures you use every once in a while, you can throw them in here. So you can go in here to like my IMM brushes or hard surface kit bash brushes and go in here and just kind of pick stuff out. I don't need constant quick access to these. But if I did, like for instance, I have orbs cracks in here and Damien standard 02, ZModeler topology we were talking about earlier, snapping to the surface, ZModeler slice variants. If I do want quick access to those, that you can throw those brushes or alphas or whatever into your ZBrush 2021 Z startup brush presets, and then it'll show up every time you start up ZBrush. So yeah, throw them in there, and then you can assign a hotkey to them. Yes, I am forever bored going through the basics over and over again. That's okay, I'm not really bored. But you know, just kind of going through, you know, making stuff, it's just a bunch of basics. Speaking of basics, if you're new to ZBrush, a good place to start, in my opinion, which is biased, is this new intro to ZBrush for ideation. So here, this will start you off from scratch, like opening up ZBrush. How does it work? What does it mean? Yeah, do you ever use delete loops after ZRemeshing to optimize resolution? Every once in a while, for sure, especially if it's on like a cylindrical object that I just, you know, I don't need nice even quads. I just want to capture the silhouette for sure. It does look like tricky. Okay, what is the best brush and a way to create a sharp edge of a sword for blades? ZModeler is a good place to start. Joseph Drust did a Boolean version, knife modeling using, I mean, not, you can use ZModeler for making knives, obviously, but here's the Z Classroom bladed weapon, and this you can actually use Booleans, and then you can ZRemesh those or rebuild them. That's another option for you. Why do you need the timeline up here? That's just a visual of what we're using to kind of timeline snap. But I don't need it, you're right. I can turn off show. And it looks like here, looks like my eyes might need to drop back in quite a bit. So I'm going to take this. Let's see how this works. So now I can go in here to move multiple, and I can hold down Control Shift, and we're just going to grab my eye pieces, and we're just going to drop those back here. We'll turn off move multiple. All right, and we'll make sure that on the inside of the eye here, and our eyelid, I'm having a hard time grabbing it. Alt tap, there we go. Our eyelid here. And always make sure your eyelids have plenty of thickness. Eyelids aren't paper thin. So we'll go ahead and pop those out just a bit. Okay. And we got this. That'll be a nice clean sweep here. These things will probably be, I don't think this will be looking a little Edgar Allan Poe. Let's go ahead and fill in a little sunken. So we'll go ahead and like fill these in just a bit, just to kind of soften that transition just a bit. There we go. Little kid. I think we're getting there. Cool, let me catch up. What is the best brush and way to create a sharp edge? Oh yeah, we talked about that. Detailed tutorial on modeling with ZModeler for hard surface. Like ZModeler for modeling hard surface is basically just box modeling. So it wouldn't necessarily be like, how do you use ZModeler for that? It'd be, how do you box model? How do you extrude faces and slice edges and all that stuff? So really any hard surface tutorial will be a good one, I think. I don't know that it has to be ZModeler specific, because it's all the same stuff. If you can extrude a face and bevel an edge, I mean, there might be some instances where ZBrush is a little bit weird. You can't do n-gons in ZBrush, so you have to maybe watch that a little bit. Cool. Okay, we good? Looks like an adult's eye on a little head. Come on. There we go. Let's go in here. Let's drop this eye back a little bit. Oops. I'm trying to select, I'm having a hard time selecting these damn standard brush. My lazy radius off. And also going in here, and you can turn these up and down. So this eyelid might be a little much here. And that would just be a case of just taking your orbit here and Oh, you do have an Alt Smooth as well. You can hold down Shift and start smoothing and let go of Shift, and it'll maintain your volumes a little bit better. Okay, so for these eyelids, let's go ahead and go back to our head here. We're going to crank up that resolution just a bit and go ahead and re-Dynamesh, and then we can go through here and just start, we can refine the mouth a little bit more. And in this case, not a bunch of refining we need to do. If you want to, you can also go in here to the pinch brush, and you can go through here and you can kind of squeeze these down a little bit more. And yeah, I think we're about right here. And then we'll go in here with our clay brush. You can, again, use your Damien standard brush to kind of pull out here, and then your standard brush kind of keep pulling out here, and then clay brush or inflate brush to give yourself a little bit of leeway. And then we'll go ahead and smooth, or let's go in here to our move brush. The inflate brush is usually a little bit of a softer touch for your volumes here. So we'll go ahead and use our inflate brush here for our chin, around the mouth here, smooth brush. And then for our nostrils here, we'll kind of cut in around. And this would be, getting some toddler reference would be really helpful. We'll see if we can't just brute force this. And we'll have a little bit more fun actually making the pieces, I think. Let's go ahead in here and hit D for dynamic, just to kind of make those eyes a little bit smoother. And then for these eyelids, we can go ahead and merge these down into one. And since we have a different polygroup for our edges here, we can go in here and do a crease PG, although it looks like we kind of missed there. That's okay. Let's hit Control D. Well, you can just do a crease tolerance. That's under your crease menu under geometry. Not a kind of, and again, this geometry isn't great. You could ZRemesh it, but I don't need it to be great. I just need it to be functional. And we still have auto masking topological, so I can move the upper lids independent from the lower lids here. Had a little dent in my eyeball. So again, we want the upper eyelid, lower eyelid, and then that eyeball can kind of fit somewhere in between. And then we can just merge this down. I don't think I'll need to be that careful. There will be an instance possibly where you want the upper eyelid to kind of be overlapping the lower eyelid, and you may want to build that geometry in. In this case, I think we're going to be okay. So I'm going to take my head geometry, put it above my eyelids, go ahead and say merge down, Control drag, and that'll be our eyelids here. Then we can go through here and make sure that, and actually before we do that, let's go ahead and undo. We can make sure that's about right. Kind of delicate eyelids here. Yeah, I think that'll work. Control drag. You know what? Let's bring up that resolution just a tiny bit more. Hold down Shift, drop my Z intensity down on my good enough. Move. Now this, oh man, I'm having a hard time. My Wacom's being a little bit weird, or I'm being a little bit weird. That's probably more accurate. All right, and then when we ZRemesh this, we can make a lot bigger changes. That'll be easier. We got our details kind of locked in-ish. and we can go through there and we can do what we need to after we ZRemesh, but we need to get the body up to speed. We also got to figure out what kind of costuming we want for this thing and all that good stuff. So we'll go ahead and just feel like I lost my intensity there for a second. It's a little bit intense. And I have my little reference head down here, and it's looking about right. We'll go in here with our clay brush. I'm gonna build up that little node. Build this up a little bit maybe. All right. Bring up another. Go back to our child proportions here. I'm just going to have this off to the side as well. Where's that 2 picture here? Yeah, so this is the reference we were using for the body here. And get caught back up real quick. Give me a second. Oh boy. I can't find out what the brush settings make nudge brush behave like this. Did I miss something? Cool. All right. All right, so let's go through here, and I guess I'll start dialing in the body. Now for a Cupid, he's gonna have a bow on the back, and in fact, I can actually steal one. I think I've got from my recordings here. Yeah, I was recording. That was ZBrush 2021.5 Artemis. Posed. Yeah, let's grab this one. Let's see, 01. That's just the body. 03. 02. Just trying to get a clean version of this here. You know, and I guess that'll work. That'll be fine. And it'll give us something else to talk about here. So if I wanted to take this off of here, I can go through and I can just make a folder. So I'm gonna hit W, move multiple. I'm gonna grab just the things that I want. And I'm gonna hit Control F, create a folder, yes. We're gonna say arrows. And we'll go out and move multiple. We go in here to Z plugin, and we're gonna go in here to Subtool Master, if I can find it, and we're gonna say copy folder, and then we're gonna go over here to our working guy, and we're gonna say paste folder here. Oops, sorry, Z plugin, Subtool Master, paste folder. And again, if the proportions aren't exactly right, that's okay. We can go in here to arrows and we can say transpose set. And let's hit F here. Boy, those are way off, aren't they? Let's go ahead and just scale these down here. I'll go out and move multiple, and then now we have these in our scene. So we can go through here. Let's go ahead and shrink this down a little bit. Hold down Control Alt, hit W, and right now it's kind of just arbitrary. I can go through here into solo and I just Alt tap this point here, and then I can just move along that surface normal. We'll go ahead and shrink this up just a little bit here, and then W. Oh, we still have move multiple turned on. Turn that off. Alt tap these arrows. And if these ones here, we can also do Shift D. I can just pull them along these surface normals as well. Just Alt tap here, and now I can just pull them right along here. So these can be my arrow quiver. We'll hit W again, move multiple, and we'll kind of just put this into place. on our guy here. And then for the body here, still same basic anatomy. You're still going to have a clavicle through here and a sternomastoid, which we'll have to connect the head for, but we'll hold off on that. Your pectoralis and your sternum and your deltoids are still going to, and again, we're not looking to make this like Bruce Lee defined, obviously, but you know, the volumes still need to be in the right place. So you still need a little tricep muscle just to make sure that it's fleshed out where it needs to be. A little bony landmark for the elbow here, just so we know where that is. Let's go into solo mode here. And then for the back, and the obliques. So you're going to have like on your pelvis here, your ACIS points here, and then you're going to have your obliques kind of spilling out over that. Again, we're just dialing in just a little bit and then softening the forms right back up here. The rib cage too is going to be right in through here, so you need to make sure that that's all accounted for. Then, you know, obviously the belly here, and then yeah, we'll probably put some sort of diaper. I think Cupids have some sort of diaper or cloth wraps, generally speaking. Here, and then the pose obviously is going to affect a lot of this too. So we'll go through here, and we'll also dial in that spine. So it's going to hold down Alt, or not hold down Alt, but go into Damien Standard and just kind of push in those points here. And then go back to our clay brush or even our inflate brush. Probably be decent. And again, for really, really soft, stylized kind of shapes, this is where having those primitives, like we were talking about way earlier, having those primitive volumes can certainly help, because you're really just kind of moving around primitive volumes, and then you can dynamesh it all at the very end. You do a little bit less sculpting. And you worry just a little bit more just about forms and stuff. So here, and then on the legs here, again, same kind of deal. I think the knees are probably going to be, again, not a whole bunch of muscle definition, but still the same principles apply, where you've got your adductors here, and then you've got your, so here's your adductors, and that's going to be a sweep here, and this is going to also be another smooth sweep down here, and then your shin right here, your tibia, is going to kind of separate that front and the back from your soleus, your calf muscle, and then your calf muscle down here, your Achilles tendon. Let's go ahead and dial in these feet a little bit better. So yeah, this direction, you're going to have a little curve on the inside of the foot, out to the big toe, and then back to the little toe, and then this outside curve here. So that's what we're basically looking at. And then the ankles, again, these are going to be a little more tubular, I think, for a kid, kind of a little roll of fat here, but essentially you're still going to need volume for the ankle. So you're going to go high to low through here. So here's the inside curve here. It's looking a little bit knock-kneed. Let's go ahead and move these knees out here. My standard brush seems to be very touchy. So high to low, high to low for the calves as well, and then high on the inside for the ankle, and then low on the outside where the fibula is. Then we got the heel, and that meat of the foot. And then the arch of the foot, let's go ahead and straighten this out a little bit. It's going to go higher from that big toe and then kind of diminish out towards the little toe here. And it'll kind of be along that kind of curved path there. Something like that. And we haven't done much with the hands yet, but let's go ahead and merge that head down. Now the head is going to be the higher of the two, so I'm going to kind of push this down. So as I merge the head down, subtool merge, and then control drag to Dynamesh those both together, it's going to take the higher resolution Dynamesh of the head here. Let's go ahead and crank up my Z intensity for my smooth. And then now we have a head connected to a body. And again, I'm not going to worry too much about the details on the body until we get a pose going, because it's going to be kind of the twisting and turning of those shapes dictate a lot of that. These hands are kind of a mess. And again, if we're just going to be posing those anyways, and there's going to be little sausage fingers, maybe I shouldn't worry too much about it. But we do have topological, move topological turned on. There's actually a move brush just for that. By the way, you can just go in here to BM, maybe T, and that'll give you the move brush with topological. But I usually just go and turn it on in my menus there. And then at any point, you know, we do have actually, we had subdivisions turned on. Let's go ahead and delete higher, hit Control D. So you can start going through here and just subdividing as opposed to Dynameshing. You can go through here and just kind of dial in what you need to on this geometry, which is going to be the knuckles. I would say normally for like adult fingers, it would be flatter on the top and then rounder on the bottom. That may not hold true for children. Sorry, let's turn that Z intensity down. It may just be just round. But basically, yeah, go in here underneath. And let's go into solo mode while that's out of the way. Hit Control D to subdivide. And then just Damien standard underneath here to kind of dial in where these will need to go. Inflate. Clay brush. We don't want it to be super goopy. We do want some sort of form, controlled form. Although I am kind of fighting this geo on this finger over here. Let's do this. Control, hold down Control, go in here to Mass Lasso, invert that. Control tap to invert that. I'm just going to look down here. Let's turn off Move Multiple. Kind of untwist that geo. And again, we have move, transpose, move topological turned on, so I can move these fingers independently. Here, and again, go back into our inflate brush. Kind of plump these fingers out just a bit, especially along here. We're kind of getting some points going. And these were taken from the IMM brush. And it might have been easier now that I'm doing this. It might have been easier just to kind of make hands from ZSpheres like we were doing earlier, or just use primitives to kind of dial in your finger proportions and duplicate that finger around, because these fingers got all out of whack early on in the process. But I think we kind of got them dialed in ish. Got kind of a bloated finger over here, but very soft, smooth. And again, we're going to end up ZRemeshing this back to the body in just a second. So, and then we'll start detailing out a little bit more, and then we'll go into posing, which will be a lot easier once everything's ZRemeshed here. So close enough. Look at that fat hand here, and we got the big meat of your thumb and then of the palm over on this side. And then one more finger left to go. And then right on the back knuckle here. And then this one. And then let's go ahead and thumb this one out, and right along the pad here, we'll plump it up. There we go. A little better. Alrighty, so now we're going to take the body, hold down Shift with the hand selected, oops, hold down Shift and shoot that to the very bottom. Then we have the body here. We can just, again, just merge down, Dynamesh these together. And now we've got the hands stuck to the body, and then we can start ZRemeshing this, get our details back. And I think we'll be in good enough shape. Let's go ahead and this also make us a lot easier. Let's go ahead and turn off topological. So now we're dealing with a lot of points here, which is going to make it very difficult to move around, which will be where ZRemesher comes in. That'll make our lives easier when we need to go and kind of dial in our forms a little bit better. So let's go into solo mode here. We have history on this thing, and we can keep using that history to project back to if we want to. But let's go ahead and see if we can't dial in some edge loops for this guy. So I'm going to go into polyframe mode. We're going to turn off line, hit Control W, make it all one polygroup. Let's make it a little bit easier to see here and start putting in some loops for us. So, and again, I don't need that many. Really, where I'm really mostly concerned on the head here is the eyeballs, and we don't even need this deep crevasse in here either. We can alleviate some of that stress in here. I'm going to kind of dial this up just a little bit here. Okay, so we want to store this point of our geometry in history, so we can come back to it. We can project our details back from this point. So I'm gonna hold down Control and just tap that point in history. And we're gonna go through here and we're gonna make some edge loops. So I'm gonna hold down Control. We're gonna go in here to mask pin. And we're just gonna kind of right along the inside of the eye here. And the head's gonna be where we have the most, like maybe the most curves. And we could actually do the head separately and sew it into the body later, but let's see if we can't get this to work first. And again, I don't care that much about the geometry. I just need something ZRemeshed lower in order to get that to work a little bit better. So now with that masked out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here just to get a kind of a smoother line where my mask is, because if I just hold down, if I just hit Control W, that'll give me a line, but it's pretty aliased. We can smooth that out as well, but another easy kind of way to go through here and do that is to go in here to geometry edge loop and just say edge loop mask border. That'll kind of give you a clean cut around here. To smooth this out, you could go in here and do like a mask. Turn that down. Let's go ahead and do a quick save. Masking mask by polygroup border, and then Control tap to invert that and do like a deformation polish by features and just kind of smooth that out. However, there's also a brush for that. You can hit comma, brush, LMNOPQRS, smooth, and there is a smooth groups brush. So now as I go along this edge loop border, it'll go ahead and smooth it for me. So that's kind of neat. So now I'm going to go ahead and there's two ways we can do this. We can hold down Control and then turn, well, Mask by polygroups is global, so you don't even have to hold down control. You can do mask by polygroups and then it'll actually stop right around here, or you can just hold down control shift and get rid of that polygroup. Hold down control shift and tap your object. I'm going to put another loop around here for this part of the eyelid here. You know what, let's just hit Control W, and then, you know, let's make this a little more obvious. There we go. It's still, there we go. And then I'm gonna hold down shift and use our polygroup border smoothing to go ahead and smooth that transition between those two. Where else might we need this? On the ear, again, I'm not overly concerned about this, but occasionally the ear will do some really weird things. So I'm gonna try and control ZRemesher a little bit by going, you know what, follow this here-ish. Vaguely this shape for the ear. And to sharpen this up, you can hit Control, hold down Control Alt and tap, and that'll sharpen it up. It's also under here underneath mask sharpen, but hotkeys work fine here. And again, we'll hit Control W, and I'll smooth all these later on, and we'll also help it out by help ZRemesher out by going, you know what, also maybe put a line around the ear like this. And again, ear geo, I'm not overly concerned about, but then when we go back to reproject, sometimes the ear geo will get really chewed up along the edges, and just helping it out just a little bit might save us some headache in the future. So again, hold down Control and just mask, and then hold down Control Alt if you want to sharpen it up. Control W, make a polygroup, Control Shift Tap to bring everything else back. And then around the nose, I suppose, like you could get as into the minutia as far as, like, you know, putting in a little mask around here, but I'm just going to mask the entire nose shape. We'll say, generally speaking, maybe put in a shape here for our nose. Control W, and then again for our mouth, we'll say here. Control W, and then around this maybe we'll put in another loop. Speaking of creepy children, that's pretty creepy. Control W. Now the rest of this might be a little bit easier. Jaw and neck transition's a little bit goofy, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it because we can fix that later. We can hold down Control Shift, and we can slice here, so we can actually just kind of put in kind of a neckline. Again, we're dealing with quite a 2 million points, so give it a second. Now slicing isn't symmetrical, but we can always dial in that symmetry later. Yeah, you can maybe try to go through here and slice the arm. I have a feeling it might give us a little bit of an awkward cut along the back. That's fine. And then the elbow here, let's go ahead and isolate this, and we'll go to the top, and we'll just kind of put a slice in where that elbow is going to go. And then where the wrist, and you could maybe do it for all the fingers. I think it might do an okay job though, so I'm going to skip that. Oops, looks like we got 2 feet down here. I'm going to go ahead and do a it's same polygroup as the head. I'm going to do a quick auto groups, it's going to polygroup non-vert welded objects here, and then we can just take these and hit Control W, make it all one polygroup. So now we got the body here. This one I'm going to go through and mask. So you can actually use mask lasso first, kind of get this close enough, and then go back into mask pin. Just hold down Control, go back into mask, and we'll just kind of dial this in. And again, Control W, isolate along the knee, hold down Control Shift, and we'll slice. Now this one will go to both sides because it'll slice through the mesh. ankles. And we didn't dial in any real toes or anything like that. If you wanted to slice the bottom of the foot, you could do that as well, but I think this will work. I'm going to do a deformation mirror across the X, and then geometry modify topology mirror and weld, and that'll get us our shape here. So I'm going to go in here to ZRemesher, and we're going to say, as you can see, we turn on lines. Oops, turn on lines. We have a very, very dense mesh. We still have this point in history saved, so we can go and project back our details. We're going to go and simplify this object using these as guides. So we're going to go in here to ZRemesher, keep groups. We don't need smooth groups on. Turn that down to 0. Our groups are already smooth. Actually, they're not. Turn off line. I forgot. I was going to go back and do all that. So to make our groups smooth, hold down Shift. We're using that smooth groups brush we pulled in earlier. And now we're going to make sure our groups are smooth. It's going right along these border edges and manually smoothing them out. I just like having the control of smoothing my own groups rather than having it kind of just globally polishing my group borders for me. These were sliced, so they should be super clean. Yeah, okay, good. So we're in good shape. All these should be nice and smooth. Okay, so everybody cross your fingers. Let's see if this will work. You can also, if you wanted to, you could turn on ZRemesher. Where are we at? Use Polypaint, and you can actually dial in color density if you want more resolution in the head or the hands. I think we'll be okay without it. So we'll go ahead and just turn on polyframe. We'll turn on line so we can see what's going on. We're going to say ZRemesher, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0. Target polygon count of 5 maybe. Might be okay. We'll say adaptive size down to 19. Make sure X symmetry is turned on just by tapping X. And we'll hit ZRemesher. I'll get caught up. I've been watching any sci-fi shows lately. Expanse or Raised by Wolves. I haven't. Those are both on my list. I watched The Alienist season 1. Beautifully shot. Perfectly tiling geometry. Yeah, in fact, oh boy, is this going to give us problems? Hold on just a second. Slice, slice, slice. Let's say depth size 19, target polygon count of, let's say 16. I'll start high. Yeah, you can use a remesh for a Picatinny rail. This is probably what I would use for that in particular. There's also like tiling. You know what? I don't think I have it on my here, but let's see, F tiling. Yeah, nano tile. You can also use this. This is more for like tiling, not just like tiling textures and stuff like that too. But oh, it's going to give us problems, is it? Well, that's okay. We can troubleshoot. And you know what we may need to turn on, you know, when I forgot I didn't smooth out these groups. So when you don't have smooth turned on, it tries to build in the aliasing of your lines, and it's unforgiving. So that's another really important part. So I forgot to smooth those lines out. So let's see. Yes, eye sockets, mouth socket. We cover, you know what, if you go in here to my live stream full episodes, you know what, actually, let's do this. That'd be kind of similar, but we've done this before. Just do a search for a mouth bag. Here's mouth bag and nostril creation, creating a mouth bag with ZRemesher. Those get you cracking. See a manual UV editing tool in ZBrush, maybe addition to ZModeler. Like, sky's the limit. Anything's possible. Yeah, we're having some issues here with some of the stuff. We can clean that up though. Cool. When you incorporate Substance Painter in your streams Thursdays, just curious if you played with UDIMs. Nah, I don't really play with UDIMs that much. That's not true. They're kind of as like a poor man's UV set. Oftentimes. Did that work okay? That seemed to work all right. I'm going to clean up some of these groups here. The head actually worked really well, I think. But then we kind of ran into some issues along the neck here. So I'm going to alleviate some of these and we'll do another ZRemesh pass here. Yeah, we can clean these up. In fact, let's hold down Shift and let's go back to our regular smooth brush, which is down here. Because yeah, it's trying to build in a bunch of weirdo stuff. And then stuff like this, you can hold down Alt and then tap Shift and just steal those. Ugh, okay, let's let it save. It might be okay to dump memory anyways. Okay, save that and we'll pull up ZBrush. So again, I apologize if I miss anything. Okay, and recovered Z tool should work fine. I don't need the whole Z project, do I? Oh, you know what? We lost our project history. You know what? I might be able to just sculpt back our detail. Let's hit comma key. Let's go in here and say, let's see if our Z project saved out our history. Yeah, it didn't. You know what? Since we were sitting here, it might have quick saved. So we got our sliced up mesh here. And now that I know where the problems are, yeah, for some reason, even this slice had a slight issue. See how it's kind of gross? So I'm gonna hold down Shift. Let's go into our comma key, brush, smooth, groups, skip. So I can go through here and smooth this out. I can also, just like I was talking about before, if we turn off polyframe, just do fill, not line. Let's go in here to masking. It's going to be kind of heavy-handed, but it'll get the job done. So I'm going to go through here. I'm going to control tap this point in history for our mesh. And you know, if we want to play it ultra safe and have something to go back to, I'm going to duplicate this mesh off so we have something sitting in here in case it crashes. That we can then pull from so we can project our detail back. So we have that point in history saved, and we're going to go down here to masking, mask by polygroup border. I think. Mask by features border, solo mode. Oh, groups border. There we go. And then, you know what, let's grow that a little bit and then hold down Control Alt to tighten that up a little bit. Hold down, tap Control, we'll invert that. I'm going to go in here to deformation polish by features and just crank that up. So now I know all of my borders should be smooth. So ZRemesher shouldn't have a whole bunch of problems. It might run into something around here, but we'll see. So now we should have a little bit more luck. Sorry about that, everybody. ZRemesher, depth size down quite a bit. Target polygon count of maybe 16K. Yeah, keep groups. Oops. Keep groups, don't smooth groups, and we'll hit ZRemesher, make sure X symmetry is turned on. Tiling, UVs, forearm shapes. Yeah, forearms are fun. There's a few things in there that'll help you with forearms, so you can draw on that. Just a second. Eye socket, mouth socket. Child's and enemies, a little different than normal human. Children are human too. Common misconception. When you're modeling posed model, how do you deal with the symmetry? You lose symmetry. You do have pose symmetry in here if you want to deal with like use posable symmetry, but in this case, once I lose my symmetry, I lose my symmetry. Dynamesh the head and hand the body without losing detail. I always lose my head detail when merge Dynamesh with the body. Keep your Dynamesh resolution up to the highest version, and then you can just reproject back like I'm doing right now. So we have our ZRemesh body here. Looks decent. If you want to kind of push it a little bit, you can. In fact, you know what, let's, some of this I kind of want to clean up a little bit. Let me think. Yeah, because I definitely don't want to just roll with this. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here to our ZModeler brush BZM. We're going to do a stitch, or I'm sorry, yes, stitch 2 points. No, I want to bridge 2 points here to here, and then here to here, because yeah, this ring is not doing it for me here. And then we can actually go through and simplify this. We'll do like a collapse edge here. So now we've got these points here, and this is a little bit problematic, so I'm actually going to go into my ZM slice brush, and we can just slice across here, do an uncrease all, sorry about that. And then we'll go in here and we'll say delete edge. And then here, I kind of want to, this is all fine. Oh, you can also hold down Alt and then tap Shift just to get that all in Polygroup there. We'll do a quick mirror and weld. And again, I'm not in love with this transition here. And this isn't like, you know, retopology for animation. I wouldn't send this over to the rigging team and be like, good luck. But in this instance, let's see if we can just simplify this. We're just going to go into collapse. We're going to get it good enough for what we need. And we can actually hover over this edge, and we're going to say spin this edge. And you know what? We can maybe even just collapse these down. I don't know that we need that here. In this geometry, I'm not overly concerned about. So now we just have a little bit of a problem with these triangles here. And we can go ahead and bridge these 2 points so we can see that triangle a little bit clearer. So here's our problem. So how to resolve this? We can continue like cutting this through here. Let me see if I got my slice brush here. And all it is slice mesh. You can slice a mesh on a point. You can slice a mesh on an edge. If you want to know more about that, that's the ZBrush 2021.5 updates here. New slice brush, just go in here and do search for slice. Videos 75 or 63. Slice edge, slice point, polyfill, and all that stuff. So you can check that out. That'll give you more info on the slicing stuff. But so now we can go through here and we can kind of just bridge these together, and then we can delete this one. We'll still have a triangle here. And boy, it really doesn't like that opposite side, does it? Mirror, mirror, and weld. Oh, and I was going to check too on my slice brush. And the only thing that's different between this and the ZModeler brush is this one's already set up for slicing when I want it to slice. So we still have a triangle here. We can try and marry that triangle somewhere up here, or we can go through here. Again, we can just connect these two together. However, I'm going to see, is there a way? Oh yeah, do not crease. Perfect. I should probably just turn that off. So I'm going to slice this one over here. We're going to turn this into a really ugly quad. And I said, do not crease. Oh, did I not have? Oh, I did have X symmetry turned on. Okay, good. Yeah, it's a disastrously ugly quad here. Man, that's not going to work, is it? Because it helped us here. Honestly, I'm just going to collapse these. When in doubt, just simplify it. Don't add more stuff. And then we'll go ahead and say spin, edge, delete, edge, boop, boop. And just smooth this out. And you know what? I'm just going to live with that bad triangle there. Good enough. Close enough for government work. Everything else is in place. Now we can try, you can actually see the body here is more high res than the head, which is not great. So what I'm going to try and do, let's try this. Here in the hands, we're going to invert that, and we're going to go over here to use Polypaint. Color density of 2, we're going to go to, let's turn off polyframe so we can see this, color, fill object. So now this will be regular density, and this will add more density. So if we go in here to same, and then ZRemesher, make sure you have X turned on, it'll hopefully redistribute our poly density here without messing up anything too badly. So now the head is more dense and the hands are more dense, and then the body is less dense. However, I do want to drop this adaptive size down just a little bit, and also the polygon target count down just a bit. And it should go a lot faster now that we're dealing with fewer points here. I think we can keep stressing this. Let's keep dropping this down. And if you want to run a different algorithm down the center line, you can see this is getting a little bit weird in here. Hold down Alt and tap ZRemesher. It might give you a better result down the middle. I might be able to live with that. You know what? A little bit higher. Okay, body's not that dense. Hands and head are a little more dense. Let's hold down Shift. Turn down that Z intensity. It's a little bit weird, but I think we can live with that. So now, because we have a duplicate sitting out here, we can go in here to transparency mode, and we can make sure that our edge loops are generally where we want them. Maybe. I mean, I guess we can kind of live with that. Now let's try and snap some of these points here. Now we can go back. We still have our points in history saved, or do we? We kind of lost them. That's okay. So we're going to go through here. Here's our point in history we want to snap back to. So I'm going to Control tap that. And then now we can go through here and we can use project. Now we can do two different types of project. We duplicated this off, so I can project to this subtool, or I can go to project to history, which that's a ZBrush 2020. What's new, I think. ZBrush 2020, the one, yeah, this one. I think that's history project. And there's actually a history project brush too. But we'll go in here to project, project history. We just want geometry, so we're going to project history here, get those vert positions back. Then we can hit Control D, project history, Control D, project history, and we're getting our details slowly back. As you can see, Control D, project history. So now we have all of our details back, and we have subdivision history. So we can go back here and play with our volumes and then go back up and then continue to detail this out. So we'll go ahead and go back to our white color here. And we could do the exact same thing. Instead of projecting history, we could go back here and project to this subtool, but I don't think we need that one, so we'll go ahead and delete it. And there we go. We'll go ahead and do a quick save. And so we've merged the head to the body, redistributed the geometry, got projection history back. We can go through here and kind of smooth out some of these. Hold on Shift, and I'm just going to go back to our regular smooth brush so we can smooth out some of these lines around our polygroups here that we don't really need anymore. We'll drop that Z intensity down just a bit. All right. So again, instead of dealing with 2 million polygons all the time, we can drop down to like 18 million polygons. We can pose it out a little bit easier, and then we can also make fixes through here a little bit easier. If we see something that's needs to be fixed, like this transition here, from the side, from like the head, the neck here. So we've got the jaw here, and then this neck just kind of is a little bit of an abrupt transition here. So I'm going to go ahead and fatten up this neck just a bit. Smooth it out. Again, it's a lot easier to make your fixes on a lower res mesh, and then go back up and you've got your details back. Now we didn't make a mouth bag for this. I'm not anticipating doing a whole bunch of facial animation with this, but the link I sent out earlier will show you how to do like a mouth cavity. But we can kind of indicate there's there's a mouth cavity in here. I'm going to go in here with my Damien standard brush. There is a brush BD Dam Standard 02 you can download. That might be helpful. I'm going to keep dropping my Z intensity down because again, we're looking for very, very soft shapes. Go back to a regular Dam Standard brush, and we'll just kind of Just softly pull out this upper lip shape and then go back in with our clay brush. Very light clay brush, maybe even a inflate brush might be better. Just kind of pull out the lobes there. There we go, and then standard brush will kind of push back in the shape here. Let's go ahead and turn off lazy mouse. And there's actually a mouse average that you can use. If you don't really want a lazy mouse, you can go in here to your stroke menu and you can crank that mouse average up a little bit, and that'll smooth out your stroke without having to rely on lazy brush. I mean, lazy brush is great, don't get me wrong, but just for like a little touch of lazy brush without committing fully to a lazy brush. Let's go set it in level 3 and kind of dial this in a little bit. Okay, get cut up here. Cool, yeah, and whenever the broken polys happen, it's usually like a little sliver or a triangle in there that's causing it to behave badly. It's trying to do it's trying to capture some detail you didn't want to capture, but it's technically in there. That's, at least in my experience, that's usually the culprit. Pull this out a little bit here. And again, if you want to go back here and make big changes, you can. You just drop down like sort of in level 1 and all that good stuff. But we're coming up on 8 o'clock. Please save a morph target and smooth those jagged lines and use morph project. Yeah, you could do that too. Jeez, I got it. Cool. Twitch stream went down 10 minutes ago, but never mind. Oh, sorry about that. Well, I'm recording, so it'll be up on my channel in just a minute. For ZRemesher, how do you keep the details of the head and hand before merging and Dynamesh the body? Oh yeah, we talked about that. Can you use mask border then use smooth? Yes, you can use just a smooth brush. How do you cut a pistol barrel to an angle so it doesn't get weird shape and keeps being straight shape and clean? Slice, maybe, or Boolean? Yes. Oh, everybody can fail, especially me, I would say. If I turn on Dynamesh, the min connected points to smooth brush, moves the border 2, even on min connected polys more than 3. Is there any way to fix for that? Min connected points to smooth brush, it smooths the border as well. As far as I know, under the, so he's talking about the smooth brush modifiers, min connected here. If you drop that down to 1, which is also incidentally the smooth BS smooth cloth, it's just basically taking that min connected down to 1. I don't know why it wouldn't work, unless that's a bug. Hard surface modeling a pistol. I mean, so you can model any number of things. In fact, here's Sci-Fi Pistol series. You can make the Sci-Fi Pistol. This is old. This is like ZBrush 4R8, so it's a little bit dated, but I think that was even before ZModeler was introduced, or early ZModeler. But yeah, you can do hard surface in ZBrush, I promise. Tips for stylized characters are organic and hard surfaces combined, like the edge of brows and such, having a hard time making clean geometry. You can, it's basically starting with shapes, starting with primitives. It'd be a good way. You know, but if you want to, like, you know, add in, you know, these types of hard edges, that's just like the Damien standard brush or the Orbs Cracks brush. Let's go ahead and crank up our intensity here. And then you can go in and you can kind of fill in with like the clay brush here. And then, you know, depending on the shape you want to make, you can go back in with H polish, hold down Alt, let go of Alt, shift to smooth. And so you can kind of dial in these geometric type shapes if you want. And ZModeler collapse is just literally collapsing an edge. So it's, you have a cylinder here, make polymesh 3D, and then you say collapse an edge. You can collapse it either direction. You can even do a collapse polyloop, collapse them all at once. You can go through here and just kind of collapse these down. Not sure when to use Sculptris Pro. I would kind of use it as I use it as a supplement to Dynamesh. In this case, I can't really use Sculptris Pro unless I want to, you know, go through and ZRemesh, because it's going to change my vert order, so I would lose my subdivision history. But yeah, it's a good addition. I usually kind of use it with Blockout, but your mileage may vary. There's a lot of different ways to kind of dial in that kind of stuff. This is just being created for a live stream, just for fun. Cool. Able to Dynamesh. Yeah, I like hard surface in ZBrush too. In fact, kind of depending on what you're trying to accomplish, you know, here's the mechanical skull. This is 100% done in ZBrush, kind of going through. Now, again, some of these techniques may or may not be useful to you, but you can do that. Also, just kind of concepting hard surface stuff. I don't have a tutorial on this, but this whole bird guy was made 100% in ZBrush. In fact, I guess I can load that up here. ZBrush demo. Also on here, the ZBrush Summit 2018. So I did a little ZBrush Summit 2018 talking about, you know, concepting and rapid iteration. All these weapons in here were done in ZBrush, you know, a half a day or a couple days, just to kind of get the idea out quickly, and then you can decide, okay, do I want to rebuild this as a sub-D mesh or whatever. So it kind of goes through that process and also the mech. So every single one of these weapons in here is just a ZBrush weapon, just done again in a couple hours or a couple days, depending on the complexity. But and then you just throw it into Engine really quickly before you dedicate a lot of time to it. So you can check these out if you want. You know, these ones too. And then same thing for the mech. So this mech here was 100% done in ZBrush. So here's the steps for the robot, you know, just kind of getting my forms in, going in and refining it. Oops, let's turn this off here. Refine those forms. Just, and again, this is more like ideation. You know, for me to do this in something like Max Miyamoto Blender would be really difficult for me personally, just because the complexity of these shapes would be something that would be a lot of moving verts around and cutting edges. And it's like, this is like maybe a half a day sculpt to get to this point. If I was to try and get to this point in another program, it would take me forever. However, I can very quickly go through here and just kind of start refining as needed. So after 3-4 days, I might have something like this, and then I can decide, okay, how do I want to rebuild this as a sub-D mesh, or do I want to just leave it as is, depending on what I need. You know, so it's a lot faster for me to arrive at this result and then decide how I want to build it, as opposed to trying to go into Blender and make something like this quickly. That would be difficult for me. Yeah, it might be easy for you. Same thing with this. CA Flyrite push pilot drone high res here. So this drone here, like this thing right here, is 16 megabytes here, and this is all, it's very, very simple geometry, but a lot of array meshes, a lot of booleans. So I load this up here. You know, we can turn on, let's go into perspective here. Is there a cat pearl maybe? Turn on my boolean. So you can see this is a 16 meg file, but it looks kind of complex, but in reality it's actually pretty simple. But this is again all done in ZBrush, and if I go through here and I do a merge visible, you can see how simple it is. You know, just basic box modeling. And if you can extrude an edge in a program, you can extrude an edge in ZBrush. It's not rocket science, I promise. Especially when you're talking about things as simple as this. And even stuff like this was just a bunch of ZRemesher stuff or Boolean stuff or a mix of the two. Most of this though, it's like a ZRemesh or micro poly. Was new in 2021. This is an IMM brush, IMM curve brush for the bullet here, bullet feed. So yeah, all the different tricks, but you know, a very lightweight file. This whole thing's, you know, 369 meg. And if I go here to save as, test, wait for it. Yeah, 6 megs, you know, so it's a very, very lightweight file. Cool. Able to dynamesh a specific part of the mesh, for example, attaching a head to the body, only dynameshing the neck to attach rather than the whole head, so you don't have to lose any detail. I would just keep it a separate subtool. Difference between collapsing an edge and deleting an edge. Yeah, and deleting an edge you'll only be able to do on a triangle because you can't do n-gons in ZBrush. Yeah, collapsing is going to take the 2 points of the edge and collapse them to one side or the other. I wish there was a middle collapse, but there's not. You could do an insert edge loop and collapse the middle, but cool. Yeah, I'll be on my channel on Thursday, I think, if I can wake up. IMM brush flow, a design of a masked area. There is now a what is it called? Let me see. Just go in here to controlling. Here's controlling curves. There's a bunch of different methods in here, as well as the new Z plugin. Not Z plugin, stroke curves helper. You can use that. Yes, rocket launchers, but not rocket science. Possible to start ZBrush with a specific project loaded? No, but it's easy, and maybe, but it's easy enough to go in here. If you just put it in your project tab and you name it like underscore or AAA, it'll show up right here. So anything you put in this folder, like a project you want to always have available really quickly, or even project settings. If there's settings in a project that you like and it's difficult to have them at startup, drop them into your ZBrush 2021 Z projects here. Just put it in here, and then whenever you start up ZBrush, just go into your lightbox, double click that project, and you're off to the races. Cool. If you leave it as a separate subtool, wouldn't there be a seam showing? How would you hide that if so? Well, I would say when you're dynameshing, leave it as separate meshes. So, and the other thing too is we dynameshed everything together. You don't have to. You can, how do I explain this? You can have a bunch of separate subtools, and yeah, there will be a seam between the subtools, but then you can merge visible, dynamesh that result to get an envelope, ZRemesh that, and then project back to your original subtools all at different resolutions, and then just go in here and smooth out, like, oh, I have a seam between these subtools that I projected the details from. Just go and smooth it out. And then you have the projected detail from all the different levels of subtools, details you have on your subtools to one mesh, just using ZProject for multiple subtools. So you basically have multiple subtools, merge those into one object, one separate object, dynamesh that together so you get one envelope of all those subtools, ZRemesh that result so it's an envelope of all those subtools, and then project that ZRemesh back as you subdivide to all the separate subtools, because you can do that. Whenever you do project all, it's going to project to any visible subtool. So if you have 7 visible subtools and you're hitting project all, it's going to project all. And then if you have any seams, then just go in and smooth out the seams between your subtools. Cool. Oh, okay, so from Brazil. Okay, I actually have a video for this too. YouTube, come on. So workstation specs. Here's my old one, my Threadripper workstation setup, and here's a slightly updated one. So I'm on 3970X. I'll just copy the share, copy. You can see all the things I added to this. I've had basically every single generation of Threadripper that's been made here, so you can check that out. I'm on the 3970X now, but I went 1950, 2990, and then 3970. And then it's, I think in the description, it's got all of the, you know, here's carried over from last build, and then here's all the updated stuff here. Is there a way to have ZBrush remember window size and position? Yes, I have that. So if you go in here to Preferences Config, after you've set up ZBrush how you like it, make sure you go in here to Preferences Config, Store Config. So when you shut down ZBrush and then restart it, it'll remember your window. Cool. Dynamesh is just projecting, it's basically a voxelization. ZRemesher is reconstructing your geometry, like using quads, basically. Cool. Thanks, everybody. I'll let you go. Have fun. And like Thursday, we'll pick this back up. And we'll go from there.